Sometimes you'll be teaching and then the student you are teaching is at home. So thank God that you are not at home, you are here. All right. So as I have said, with the fallacies of relevance, you are committed when the premises that you state are not logically relevant to the conclusion. In other words, when there is no relationship between the premise and then the conclusion. In these kinds of fallacy, as I have just stated, said the connection established between the premises and the conclusion are based on what? Emotions. That is why they are irrelevant. The connection established between the premise and the conclusion is what? Based on emotion. So if you look at all the types of the fallacies that we looked at under fallacies of relevance, they were based basically on emotions. So if you want to resolve these forms of fallacies, then what you bear in mind is that you should be able to distinguish genuine evidence from various forms of emotional appeals. So there's what we call emotional appeal. So when we come to analytical thinking, we will look briefly at these emotional appeals. Um, um, okay, so Emmanuel, I think we are here to take a class in analytical thinking. So, what time do you take that? Is it on Saturdays or on Fridays, Emmanuel?
It's on Saturday.
It's on Saturdays. Okay, but I'll let you also take it sometimes on Fridays.
Yes, sir, sometimes.
Okay. All right. So if it is possible to take it today, you let me know.
Okay, sir.
All right. Thank you. So when we come to the fallacies, when we come to what I've just referred to, the emotional appeals, we'll look at it under analytical reasoning. That is when we are dealing with language and the forms language, the important role language plays and what we should look out for so that you are not easily carried away when there is a kind of emotional appeal on the grounds. There is an emotional appeal, you should be able to deal with that. So we look at the examples of the fallacies of relevance. We look at which we also refer to as appeal to the stake. In other words, an appeal using threat. Okay, so in these kind of fallacies, threat is what is issued at the reader or at the reasoner, at the listener. Now um, um, let's look at the death of this popular Nigerian singer, gospel artist, who I learned died as a result of domestic violence. The husband had been abusing her and beat her for a very long time, subjected her to so much evil. That was what landed her to her death, right? So commonly, if you chance on some of the things that eyewitnesses or people who were close to the disease actually shared, one of the things that stood out was that um, the husband always threatened her, beat her, and even went to the extent of telling her if she broke out the news that she has been beaten, he has been beating her or harassing her, that would be the end of her life, was going to destroy her. And so anyone who had a kind of encounter or chanced on some of those violence were quickly um, cajoled. The lady quickly cajoled them not to break out the news or even tell the pastor about it. So they should never make any voice or anything. They should not make it known or hear for anybody to hear about it. So that is an appeal, right? So the husband was using that cover to abuse the wife continually until she passed out. So please, some of these things are resulting from fallacies, and all of you should be mindful of it. The reason why there are so much abuse and people are going through death situations are because of the fallacies that we are committing on the daily basis. Daily basis. Somebody is threatening a girl to accept his proposal because failure to do so, the girl will be subjected, or the lady will be subjected to rape, or be subjected to failure, and etc. This is where power plays. Even let's look at university context. Let's look at, for instance, I am teaching you, you are my student, and then uh, which is not supposed to be, and then as a lecturer, I am coercing a girl to accept maybe a sexual demand from me, and if she refuses, then I threaten her with failure. That is an appeal to force. It's a fallacy. It is not a reasonable way of reasoning with people. It is not to be entertained. So anytime you come across these forms of reasoning, it is fallacious, which you need to bear in mind. Then we have what we call the appeal to pity. Appeal to pity. I would have wished to have forwarded a particular message I received from a student just yesterday. I think a level 200 student. He made a recording and sent to me why he needed to be passed instead of to have his F sustained for him. And then in the recording that he sent to me, he went like, "Sir, I've had school fees problem, and I've not been able to pay my fees. So I had to do something and rush under the ticket of not paying fees to try to put down something so that I wouldn't fail the paper. So that was the reason why I got an F. So, sir, if you will have mercy on me as a result of the fees that I have not paid, and and pass me with a D, I would like it." You see, that is an appeal to pity. This student is eliciting my to have a pass. And that is a wrong way of reasoning. Unfortunately for him, that is critical thinking. Okay, it's a critical thinking that you have failed. And then I've taught you fallacies, and you just forget about the fallacies I've taught you. You re-adopt that bad way of reasoning and come back at me and use emotional appeal to be passed. You see, if every student should go about using the same appeal, then nobody will should actually learn. Nobody should learn, because you can easily make an excuse because I wasn't at the exam hall. I don't know. I don't have record of who paid fees and who did not pay fees. I cannot check any of that. So you come in and commit such blatant fallacy. Me, as a logic or a logician, I will not bash to that. I will not mind you. I won't bash to those kind of fallacies, and then I won't mind you at all. So it is very important. All right. So it looks like uh, mic was muted. I muted it mistakenly. So there's just an interaction here. So sorry for that fusion. Okay. Yes. So as I have just indicated about the appeal to pity, And I've just given you two examples from among my students who are doing that. So clearly what they are doing is that they are using emotion. They are eliciting my emotion because I have become their listener. They are projecting an argument for me to stand at their point of view and then accept to pass them or award them grades that they did not work for. And oftentimes there are students like that. They will not study. They don't make effort. Even in class, you ask questions, they will never respond. For instance, in my class, those of you who have been responding to my lectures, please, I take note of it. I take note of it. So, for instance, you have written an exam, you didn't do well. I looked at it as, oh, these students are very active students in class. What happened along the line? Such students, I called them to find out what happened. Did you not write the exam? What happened on the day of the exam? I will find out every detail. If there is a need to push such a student, I do so. But you can't sit in class at the mat, not talking, not asking questions, not responding to questions, and then the class become like a two people class, the lecturer and one other student who find the interest to ask questions, or who find the interest to say, okay, the lecturer likes questioning, and then he will also like somebody who like responding. So somebody who takes advantage of that now becomes the person who will be interacting in class. If you do that, it means you are not in seriously for a very good performance. So you have to be in for a very good performance so that when results are released, you don't need to come back through the back wall or the back door to come and beg your way. It is not to be done. It should not be encouraged. Don't encourage yourself to do so. That is what leads to this appeal to pity. So you can even see the example that I have provided right here. They say, I know the paper was due today, but my computer died last week. And then the computer lab was too noisy. So while I was on my way to the library, a cop pulled me over and wrote me a ticket. And I was so upset by the ticket that I sat by the road, by the side of the road, crying for 3 hours. You should give me an A for all the trouble I have been through. You have gone through trouble. Whose problem is it? Who cares? Who cares? So please don't entertain yourself to be committing these levels of fallacies. Those of you in relationship also do that a lot. That is why a lot of relationships are not built on honesty. And some of you would think that maybe this course you are taking is just for academic purposes and for passing exams. It is not so. It is a skill-based course. It is helping you to be delivered from some of these day-to-day orientations, bad orientations, or bad reasoning orientation, so that you can focus on reasonability and take responsibility for your life. Take responsibility for your life. Many relationships are going through trouble as a result of the fakeism. That is my own term, fakeism. Fakes. Okay, the tendency to fake, pretend, not be real. These are the problem. Marriages are not surviving, they are not standing, they are not progressing, they are not growing as a result of this. Okay, so we base on very flimsy grounds of reasoning, and then we do all kinds of things behind the scene, which cause the marriage, which cause the relationship, cause everything. For instance, a girl who is drawing in a lot of cash on her relationship, or a lady who is drawing in a lot of cash from her relationship and want to use blackmail to keep somebody's husband or somebody's boyfriend with her, will begin to use appeal to pity to continue to drag this young man, this man, into the relationship or into any extent that she wants. So she goes like, okay, I know the relationship is no longer working, but I'm doing my best. If you leave me, I'm going to die. If you leave me, I cannot survive. If you leave me, I'll kill myself. And then the man who is taken foolishly by not reasoning comes in with or throws in the towel for some of the flimsy arguments. This fallacy. It is not just the female committing it on the male, but males also doing it on females. So you have the gentleman also playing the same trick on the woman, cheating on her, going after other girls, and when he is caught, It comes in, oh, it's not, it's not my fault. Sometimes this thing, I've been trying. I'm doing my best. But you see, you are the best woman for me. If you leave me, this is what is going to happen. It's not going to help me. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. It's going to do that. And then keep drawing this lady into that relationship that will not work. Waste her life for 6 years. There's currently a relationship issue. This young lady, I taught her in level 200. That was about 4 years ago, level 200. And she was dabbling into a relationship. So I realized that when she comes to class, it was a small class size anyway. When she comes to class, she wasn't so active. You could see that she was going through a lot of emotional issues. Her focus, her concentration in class, you ask a question, her attitude, the demeanor, then she depicts a kind of shyness, uh, shy attitude in the class. She does all of that. And I sat down because I am a peer counselor. I am involved in peer counseling, talk to male, females, about relationship stuffs, and etc. So I realized that she was into a controlling relationship. So I asked her, "Are you into a relationship?" In the first place, she lied. I said, "You see, you are going through a phase in life, and if you do that, you will not be able to be helped. So please get help early because I know what you're going through is a relationship. So I'm not in a relationship." I said, "Okay, that is up to you. If you voice out and you come out, I'll be able to help you. You are going through problems. So let me help you." He said, "No, I'm not. It's not a problem." So later on, I found out from a very close friend, and she told me, yes, she was in a relationship, blah, 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 blah. So, okay, if she is not prepared to own up and then come out, and probably. So I asked the friend, has the gentleman been abusing this girl? Because the gentleman was also in Central University. She was in level 300, and this young lady was in level 200. So there was nothing like that. I said, if there was nothing like that, why kind of attitude is this? Because what this lady is living, I don't know her. I've not seen her before, but I realized that she's going through a lot of crisis. They hid everything. And they are being in a relationship from then, and even before then, from secondary school. So after secondary school, she stayed at home for 2 years. So add that 2 years plus the level 200. So we can say 3.5 years. Then when she completed, it's about 4 years. Add it to it, it's about 7.5 years. So let's make it average 7 years. They are being in relationship. Marriage never came up. Just when they were planning and bought things that they were going to get married, something came up last December. Just between that December and January, this gentleman calls the lady and said, "Look, I'm no longer interested in the relationship. Find someone else. Go ahead with him. And for me, I've moved on because I've gotten another lady pregnant." You see? So you see. So when you continue using this appeal to pity, and you are a lady, you are falling to appeal to pity, you'll be in problem. This guy will use you for 7 years and dump you off. He will not marry you. He will marry you. And after he leaves you, different troubles rises up. Now, you are now going to cope with another man that you don't know. You have lived all your life with one man who has controlled you, who have beaten the world out of you. You can't even make friends. This young lady I'm talking about, for instance, she doesn't even have friends. She can't make friends. Please mute yourself. Mute yourself if you are not asking a question.
No, you made a mistake. I mean,
Please mute yourself so that we will have a smooth class. If you are not asking,
You've mute yourself.
All right. So please, those of you distracting the class, I beg you, don't distract the class. If you have no question to ask, do not unmute yourself. Okay. Put your devices on mute so that you can benefit from that class. If you don't do so, you'll be distracting the entire class. The discussion will not be smooth. As a student, it's very important you gain something out of the class. All right. It's a question somebody asked, and I'm taking the pain to do so. So please do yourself be polite with us, to yourself and to all of us, so that we can have a smooth class. Thank you very much. Okay, so let me go back to my slide. Edith, I hope you are in the class.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. And you are getting the understanding now.
Yes, sir.
All right, okay. So that is about appeal to PT. Please don't give yourself to appeal to PT, and don't let anybody elicit your emotion and then draw you into something you don't want. If you allow it, you'll be used for it. If you give yourself to PT, you'll be controlled. As I've indicated, many relationships, many marriages have come to this point. They are not really marriages. They are just emotional controls that are happening. So, and a lady has forced her way to get married to a particular gentleman because of this emotion. You're feeling married, and then there are troubles. Now you are crying, and then you are now calling pastors to help you. If you are thought right and go through the mental processes of owning up and taking the responsibility for your life, you would have saved yourself all of those troubles. So you can really see that appeal to pity is a day-to-day experience. There is virtually none of the argument that is not a day-to-day experience. They are based on daily experiences. Then we have the appeal to the people. Appeal to the people, we have the direct, and then we have the indirect. With the direct one, that is where the arguer arouses mob mentality. Okay. The
Hello, sir.
arguer, hello.
Sorry, sir, please. I want to ask something. All of these appeals that you've been talking about, the appeal to force, the appeal to pity, appeal to the people, they are all under the fallacy of relevance, right, sir?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, sir, please, the 22 fallacies that you spoke about, these are them that are being grouped under the 5 fallacies that you gave to us earlier.
What's your question?
Sorry, that is, I'm following. I was a bit lost. That's why. Sorry.
So you don't. Okay, so you don't have a question.
No, sir. I'm just trying
All
to
right.
clarify.
Okay. Okay. You want to clarify? All right. Thank you very much. So are you clear now?
Yes, sir, please.
All right. Thank you. Okay. So now we have come to appeal to the people. With appeal to the people, we have the. Now, all of these fallacies that I am referring to, if you look at them, the premises that have been constructed for the conclusion, they are not relevant. The premises are not relevant for the conclusion, mostly because they are dependent on emotions, the use of emotion. So you've seen that all the 3 arguments so far we're looking at, it is involving emotion. Emotion. For instance, you come to the appeal to the people, where you may arouse a mob mentality, like everybody is doing it sort of argument. Everybody is doing it. Everybody is doing it. This is where what you call peer pressure comes in. Everybody is doing it, you to do it. Oh, everybody is using it, you to use it. Oh, if you want to be a woman, this is the salon you have to do your hair. That's mob mentality, right? Then we have the indirect. The indirect actually elicits for the desire of the reader, the security of the reader, the love of the reader, the respect of the reader. So, for instance, you want to elicit the reader's desire for something. The reader's desire or the listener's desire for, you want to elicit his desire for maybe drink, for any kind of social life that you think is contradictory to normal living. So you want to elicit the person's respect for that. That is appeal to people by saying, oh, you feel secure when you do it. You know, this is a group you will belong to and you are protected. When there's problem, we can easily come to your aid and help you. That is. So when there's a problem, we can easily come to your aid to help you. That is an appeal to the listener's security, the desire for security. So if you desire for security, that is what will be happening to you. Oh, this relationship will protect you. You know, relationship is a place to nurse your so and so and so. So enter into relationship and need to protect yourself from this, from that, from that. These kinds of arguments have gotten a lot of people relationship, or abusive relationship, and they have a problem. Protect yourself. If you want to stay away from promiscuity, if you don't want to be exploited sexually, oh, get a guy for yourself, get a lady for yourself. All of these, you see, it is the desire for either your desire for security, your desire for love, your desire for respect is being elicited. All right. So you can find an example here. An increasing number of people are turning to yoga as a way to get in touch with their inner being. Therefore, yoga helps one get in touch with their inner being. So what is happening here? So here is the person, the listen, the arguer is trying to elicit for the security, the listener's security for something, or get in touch with himself, or relaxation, the desire to function in a certain way. But you see, the premise that has been advanced for the conclusion is not relevant to it. So we have the bandwagon, all of them, the appeal to vanity, the snobbery, which I have gone through already. Then we have the argument against the person, which in the Latin is the argumentum ad hominem. Argumentum ad hominem. The argumentum ad hominem, we have the abusive, we have the circumstantial, we have the tuco. Okay, so I am back now. I think I was logged out automatically as a result of my phone not being charged. I use the phone as my internet for my internet provision. So the battery was zero, and I didn't know. So sorry for the distraction. So I believe everybody is here, or most of you have gone away. If you're here, let me know that you're here. If you are not here, so that we can look for you. Okay.
Yeah, we are here. But if you can go back small for the point 4.
If I can go back small. Okay, so I'm seeing a hand up. That is Brian. So Brian, you may go ahead and ask your question. Brian Mill, ask your question. Brian, let me hear from you, Brian. If you have raised your hand and you want to ask a question, please go ahead. Okay. Yes, may I hear from you? Can you guys, can you hear me? And do you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We can hear.
Okay. Right. All right. Right. So I want to be sure that you're all okay. So Brian, let me hear from you. You were asking a question. Can we hear from you? So please, if you don't have a question, then don't raise your hand, okay? So that we can focus and then move on. The moment you raise your hand, it means you have a question. So if you do not have a question, please put your hand down so that I do not call you. Right. I think that will help if we can do so. Okay. All right. So we have come through these. We've looked at. So we discussed all of these last week. And so with the accident, that is where the fallacy called accident is where you use the general rule to apply to a specific case. Let's look, for instance, at this example. The freedom of speech is a constitutionally guaranteed right. Freedom of speech is a constitutionally guaranteed right. This is the general rule. Is a general rule. But so let's see how the general rule has been applied. So in conclusion, the arguer says the speech of Kennedy Japan some time ago he actually said a lot of things that led to the killing of Ahmed Sule. So the arguer then posed this conclusion that Kennedy Japan has not committed any offense or has not done any wrong by whatever he said. So he said, therefore, the speech of Kennedy Japan should not be investigated for his speech that incited the killing of Ahmed Sule. See, this is a fallacy, and it is the fallacy of accident because you cannot use a general rule, apply it to a specific case when even it doesn't call for it, when it cannot be covered. For instance, you say something, or you incite people, or you say something that leads to the destruction of property. You cannot say you were just expressing your freedom of speech. No, it is unacceptable. The general rule is that freedom of speech is your right. But if it is your right, you use your right to incite people to destroy property, to destroy something. that is where it becomes what? A fallacy. So it's a general rule that has been misapplied. Misapplied. It does not mean that you cannot use it, but the context is misapplied. Using the general rule and misapplying that general rule to a specific case. Okay. Then we have the straw man. In the straw man argument, arguer distorts opponent's argument and then attacks the distorted argument. Look at it very well. The arguer distorts the opponent's argument. So this is the arguer. This is the arguer. This is the opponent. The opponent has advanced an argument. Then this arguer distorts the opponent's argument. And after distorting the argument, he poses a conclusion based on the distorted argument. Okay, so he distorts an opponent's argument and then attacks the distorted argument. In other words, pose a conclusion there. So let's look at these and then look at this closely, and then you understand what I'm landing at. So he said, the garment workers have signed a petition arguing for better ventilation on the work premise. The garment workers have signed a petition arguing for better ventilation on the work premises. So that is what has been advocated by some workers, employees. They have gone ahead to sign a petition that they want a better ventilation in their work environment or in the work premise. Then the arguer, so you see, the arguer comes in and said, unfortunately, air conditioning is expensive. Air ducts would have to be run throughout the factory and a massive heat exchange unit installed on the roof. Also, the cost of operating such a system during the summer would be astronomical. In view of these considerations, the petition must be rejected. Now look at it well. You have the opponents saying that they want a better ventilation system in the work premise. That is the argument. And so such and such steps will need to be taken for them. Now, the arguer comes in and distorts what the workers, who are supposedly the arguer's opponent, right? It comes in and distorts what they say. Now he starts by telling us that air conditioning is expensive, right? Is that what the garment workers were asking for? If they spoke about ventilation, did they talk about air conditioning? There was nothing like that. Okay, so these arguers find it expedient to distort their argument first. So after distorting and say, oh, unfortunately, air conditioning is what expensive. What is he doing? He's trying to disorient, displace the credibility of what the opponents have said. They need a ventilation, a better ventilation. He's trying to displace that to mean something else, which is not the case. So what is he doing? He's distorting their argument. Then on the basis of the distortion, now look at it. After distorting their argument, he goes ahead, the arguer goes ahead to attack the distorted argument by saying, tell the Nyaba, tell her that I will remove her from our class. You see what I'm talking about? Fallacy. You see what she's doing there? Don't be doing this. You are in a public space. You can't be doing some of this nonsense. Don't be doing that. Please, those of you who have unmute yourself and then you are talking, distracting the class, it is not congenial. It is not helpful. You don't do it. It's not helpful. You don't do it. You were in a class. You heard Nyaba Janet. You see what she was doing there. The very fallacy that you're talking about is what she lies down there doing instead of her being in class. Okay, using emotional issues, causing us distraction in our class. So please take note of this. It's not helpful. Focus. If you know you are not ready for the class, don't worry. Remain mute. Remain mute, or go off and then go and do whatever you're doing. If you're ready, then you come back and join. But don't use our class time to do that. It is not the best. So I'm taking note of all those who will be causing distraction on the platform again. One of them today I've taken note is Nyaba Janet. I've recorded you down. So please stop it. All right. Okay, so guys, you see when these distractions are coming, you are not flowing. You are discussing something and explaining something. Somebody comes in, stops everything. Why should it be so? You don't do that. You can't be in an academic environment and be behaving like that way. All right. So you have the arguer distorting the argument of the opponent, and then on the basis of that, attacks the distorted argument by giving us something that is still not relevant based on what his distortion is. Then on the basis of that, he poses a conclusion and say, in view of these considerations, the petition must be rejected. That's a strawman argument. We call it straw because we say that there is no sense in it. It doesn't hold water. It doesn't hold anything. It's like straw. Ingura is garbage. So he said that argument is what? Garbage. That is where it derived its name from. The fallacy of straw man, garbage. Where you argue and there's nothing in it. Okay. Or there's nothing to take home from it. It's garbage. It is straw. So a straw man. An empty argument, a person who is empty. All right. So please watch out that you don't commit these kinds of fallacies because they are committed on the daily besis. All right. We have what we also call the missing the point. In the missing the point, arguer draws conclusion different from that supported. That is what is supported by the premise. So the arguer tries to, after arguing and providing us logical premises leading to a particular conclusion, then he dodges it. He tries to provide a different conclusion that does not support the premises that have been advanced. So we have two examples here. Let's look at this one. As the crimes of theft and robbery have been increasing at an alarming rate lately. Crimes of theft and robbery have been increasing at an alarming rate lately. That is the premise. Now look at the conclusion the arguer poses. It says, the conclusion is obvious. We must reinstate the death penalty immediately. How relevant is installing the death penalty to the crimes of theft and robbery increasing? How relevant is it? They are two different things. They are two different things. They are two different things. So if you look at the premise very well, that is not the conclusion it is leading to. It is probably leading to a conclusion where probably there's going to be a demand or a statement of some kind of vigilance or the police law enforcement and etc. Okay, so it is not calling for the installment of a death penalty. It is totally irrelevant. Look at the second example. Abuse of the welfare system is rampant nowadays. Our only alternative is to abolish the system together. All right. If an abuse of the welfare system is rampant, the conclusion cannot be that you should abolish it. Okay, it cannot be. So here again, the conclusion is not relevant. So you will find a lot of these arguments in economics, lot of these fallacious tendencies, even among politicians, including the one I have just discussed earlier. Then we have the red herring. In the red herring, the arguer leads the reader or listener off track. So you have the arguer leading the reader or listener off track. How do they do that? Line of thought. Then he deviates or he departs or she departs away from what he's arguing for and start talking about something else. So we call it red herring. Red herring, not being consistent. So this happens when you're not consistent, when you're just talking. In many friendship and relationship and etc., people talk and they are not consistent. They are not consistent. So those of you who really want to be very serious in life, you have to shut your mouth for a while and listen a lot to people. You will find out that a lot of people just talk and they are interested in talking and they are not consistent in whatever they are saying. They are saying A, but they will end up saying A, B, C, D. 4 different other things which are not related. It is red herring. So now let's look at this example and see why it is a red herring. There is a good deal of talk these days about the need to eliminate pesticides from our fruits and vegetables, right? That is what is being argued for. What is being argued for is what? Eliminating pesticides from fruits and vegetables. Now, the arguer, that is how he started. Then the arguer continues by saying that, but many of these foods are essential to our health. Now, look at it. Is he being consistent? No. He's going a different way because he's the same person who is providing the argument. He's the person talking. Then he says one thing, then he ends up saying something else. And then start talking about many of these foods are essential to our health. How relevant is that to elimination of pesticide? Then he moves on. He or she moves on. Carrots are an excellent source of vitamin A. Broccoli is rich in iron. And oranges and grapefruits have lots of vitamin C. So you see what is happening here. The arguer is not being consistent. Arguer is not being consistent. He's trying to lead the arguer off track. He started by saying, then he says something, say something, say something. So many liars, typical liars. That is what they do. Liars. That's what they do. That's what they do. I have had a relationship where many a time this lady will probably go and even sleep around with other guys. And I am so fast in most of these things. So she comes and then I ask, you did A, B, C, D. She says no. Then after she says no, I have to listen to the next word that will come. The next word that will come. The next word will come. By the time she finished talking, we see essentially she doesn't know what she's even talking about. Lies. So lies. So if you are in a relationship that is full of lies, you will have crisis. You will have trouble. That is why I will encourage my students who are taking this class with me. You see, watch the way you reason. It's very important. It says a lot of things about you. Says a lot. So you have to watch. Very important. Very important. If you want to be trusted, because once you commit fallacies, you can never be trusted. Nobody trusts you. Because they know that this guy, this lady, any opportunity he or she would get is an abuse. Illogical tendencies, frustrated words, misleading arguments, lies is what you are going to be hearing. And they are experts. So if you are not really careful and you are not somebody who listens a lot, who listen to so much before you will always be carried away. You will never be able to distinguish between a lie and then a truth, a fallacy and whatever. So those are what we have looked for in the fallacies of relevance. Then we come to the fallacies of weak induction. We come to the fallacies of weak induction. So here I said the fallacies of induction occur when the connection between the premises and conclusion is not strong enough to support the conclusion. Remember, we have looked at the two types of argument. We look at deductive argument and the inductive argument. In the inductive argument, we have what we call weak argument. We have what we call strong argument. Now, the fallacies of weak induction or weak induction, not just weak, but it is a fallacy, is that the premise and then the conclusion, they are very weak. And aside their weakness, they are not even supported. They are not supported. The first one is what we refer to as the argumentum ad vericondium. So you can pronounce it on the side. Don't unmute yourself. Just say it in your room. Say it to your hearing. Say it to yourself. And then see whether you pronounce it closely to what I have said. You don't need to get it perfect the first time. You keep pronouncing it, you get it. So it is argumentum ad vericandium. Argumentum ad vericandium. Argumentum ad vericandium. So in English, it refers to appeal to unqualified authority. Appeal to unqualified authority. Now, let me show you the context in which this happens a lot. You see, most of you in this class, there are people you respect a lot in society. Some of you probably are related to the president of Ghana. Some of you are probably related to some powerful preachers or pastors in the country. Some of you probably are related to some powerful lawyers or to some powerful MPs, or you are related to just, maybe it can even be a doctor, medical doctor, or it can be a physician or whatever, right? So you are related with to these people and you respect them a lot. So you think that, or you tend to think that whatever they say must be trustworthy, or whatever they say must be carried along. It is not everything the president says that is truth, or that must be cited, or it is not because the president said it, I must believe it. No. If you're reasoning, you're not logical. Don't misplace logic for respect. You have problem. You have problem. So you will have the arguer citing an authority who does not qualify, and then on the basis of that poses a conclusion. Let's look, for instance, a journalist. And some of you go ahead and cite a journalist. Maybe, for instance, you're looking at a problem. We want to, even some time ago, there was the talk of legalizing marijuana in Ghana, legalizing it. Then you see newsmen, journalists, and etc. taken into the scene. Oh, we support it. When it is licensed, it will help. And then you look at their background and you realize that these journalists, even though he's so popular, she's so popular, he doesn't have the pedigree to make such argument or to go and say that we should license marijuana because it will help. Then on the basis of that, you who are in the university, you will tell me we are talking about why we should not. Then you go ahead and cite one of those popular journalists who said, oh, even this journalist said that we should legalize it. We'll have to find out, is that journalist a scientist? Does he understand the rudiments of herbs, combination of herbs, etc.? Does he understand them? How they work? Does he understand them? If you do that, you are committing a fallacy, right? Because of mere respect you have for that popular personality, you are committing a fallacy on the basis of that. Please watch out, because anybody can commit that fallacy. Anybody can commit that fallacy. Now, as I talk to you about it, I will also show you when it is not a fallacy, but I will not go into details. I will tell you when it is not a fallacy. Right. So appeal to authority does not refer to appropriately citing an expert, but rather when an arguer tries to get people to agree with him or her by appealing to a supposed authority who isn't much of an expert. So now let's look at this example. Dr. Brashaw is supposed to be an expert in a way. So somebody is trying to appeal, okay, to listeners, to his readers, by citing Dr. Brashaw as an authority. So we want to find out if it is true, if Dr. Brashaw is authority, whether he qualifies to fit in where the arguer tries to put him. So the argument goes, Dr. Brashaw, our family physician, has stated that the creation of Munich atoms of deuterium and tritium hold the key to producing a sustained nuclear fusion reaction at room temperature. In view of Dr. Brashaw's expertise as a physician, we must conclude that this is indeed true. Now look at it. Why is it an appeal to unqualified authority? First, Dr. Brashaw is a physician. In other words, he is a medical doctor. Now, when it talks about nuclear fusion, who are those who study nuclear fusion? They are not medical doctors. Medical doctors base their practice on biological science. Nuclear fusion is 100% physics. It is not related to biology. We don't practice biology when it comes to nuclear fusion. Purely physics. And physician or medical doctor, purely biology. These are two people on two different spectrums. So citing Dr. Brashaw should be the reason why this should be accepted makes it fallacious because he is not an authority that is supposed to be cited. He's not an authority. That is the wrong authority that is being cited for the occasion. So this is why it is a fallacy. Right. Now let's also let's take another scenario. Some time ago, there was a talk of not eating fufu. If you eat fufu, you will get throat cancer or whatever, throat cancer. And then the popular citation. So people go citing Dr. Mensa Otabel as the source for why we should not eat fufu because it will bring in goiter, a throat cancer, which you would have called goiter. All right. So now look at that particular argument. If you are a novice and you know that Dr. Mensa Otabel is a preacher, he is a theologian, he is not a physicist, he is not a medical doctor. You go into his background of education and you realize that he has not even gone beyond, all right? He has not gone beyond secondary school, right? So then, if you cite Dr. Mensa Otabel as the authority for why we should not eat fufu, we say it is a fallacy, right? It is a fallacy of unqualified authority. It's a fallacy of authority, okay? You have abused the reasoning that is there. You have cited the wrong person to endorse something that is not logical. So it is unacceptable. So, but if you go in and cite a food scientist, a dietitian, who is a dietitian that we know by training, she is a dietitian or he's a dietitian, and then you cite that dietitian as saying something like that, that is credible. We accept it because it is a dietitian that is saying it. It is a food scientist that is saying it. I will believe that one rather than the popular using the popularity of Dr. Mensa Otabel to endorse it. Okay, so that is why it is a fallacy. So please, all of you watch. Almost everyone in this class commits that kind of fallacy. You commit it. And some of you who revere your parents a lot, like your father or your mother, any nonsense, that will come out from your parent or your parent, your mother or your father must hold. So wherever you go, that is the view you carry. So you'll be committing fallacies, especially if your dad or your mother is not known to be an authority in that regard. Unless you can tell us that your mom or your dad, who you revere a lot, is an authority in that aspect, then we'll validate whatever you are saying. Other than that, it is a fallacy of unqualified authority. So you can see so many more examples. So this is another one. Old Mrs. Ferguson, who is practically blind, has testified that she saw the defendant stab the victim with a bayonet while she was standing in the twilight shadow 100 yards from the incident. Therefore, members of the jury, you must find the defendant guilty. Okay? This is an appeal to unqualified authority. How can somebody who a crime to such an extent that he stands about a particular distance away from the crime scene and is able to detect it? So that person is not the right authority to cite. So using that person as a witness in a jury case, in a criminal case, you will actually lose the case. It will not work. It will not work. So please, the people you have been citing for evidence, check whether they qualify to be in that place. Okay. But when it comes to the court of law, appeal to unqualified authority may not be a problem. Why do we say so? For instance, in the court of law, one judge make a new law or make a case for why a particular conduct should not be practically allowed in Ghana. Okay, it becomes a law. When another judge sits on a case that looks similar to that case, lawyers can raise that argument in their defense. And if their argument, if their example, their example or precedent applies to the case, the judge who is sitting on the case may admit it or may admit their evidence as a fact and rule the case in their favor. So in the court of law, authority is the basis of the law, because lawyers will always have to refer to what other judges have said, to make their case. So when it comes to the court of law, it comes to practical law, we don't actually have appeal to authority as a fallacy. It is rather one of the ways of reasoning in the court of law. All right. Then we come to what we refer to as the appeal to ignorance. In the appeal to ignorance, the premises reports that nothing is known or proven, and then a conclusion is drawn. So anytime an arguer, all right, tries to tell us that, okay, whatever you're talking about, we can't prove it, or there's nothing known about it, so it doesn't exist. Such arguments are advanced. They are, what they call it? They are fallacies. Anytime any such kinds of argument is advanced, it's a fallacy. To say that because something does not exist, or because we cannot prove that something exists, it does so as a result of that, it is non-existent, is a fallacy. So essentially, this fallacy states that because there is no conclusive evidence, we should therefore accept the arguer's conclusion on the subject, which is a fallacy. So let's look at a typical example. Right. The arguer attempts to use the lack of evidence as support for a positive claim about the truth of a conclusion. The exception to this fallacy is in the case of qualified scientific research. So in a qualified scientific research, where the research has been conducted and we have not found it, we can report that yes, it doesn't exist. But if it is not a scientific issue, research, then we cannot report that. We cannot say that. So let's look at an example of this fallacy. Not a single report of a flying saucer has ever been authenticated. Therefore, flying saucers do not exist. So we are saying that you cannot use the lack of evidence the lack of evidence for non-flying saucers as the reason why you will tell us that it doesn't exist. You can't do that. Now, there are people who also say that, oh, witches don't exist. No demons don't exist. If you're a Christian, it's enough. If you believe in Jesus, that is all. Witches don't exist. This doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. No, there's nothing like Satan. All right. Okay. So your inability to prove what a witch looks like, your inability to prove that there's a demonic figure, your inability to test how they look like, does not immune the fact that they do not exist. So it is fallacious to make such arguments, especially those of you who claim you are Christians. Reason quite well. People have been trying for centuries to disprove the claim of astrology, and no one has ever succeeded. Therefore, we must conclude that the claims of astrology are true. So you see, here again, there's a problem. It's a problem because the lack of evidence cannot prove that it is factual, and it must be accepted. Okay. We have hasty generalization. Hasty generalization is a situation when you can use one example, one occasion, one simple occurrence to generalize as a rule for our other occasions. It is a fallacy. For instance, those of you who have experienced broken hearts before, it can be ladies, gentlemen, etc. So you have experienced a broken heart from this bad guy or bad lady. Then, as a result of that, you see any other fine lady, then what comes into your mind? Hey, Charlie, be careful with ladies who share their disappointments. That is hasty generalization because all ladies cannot be the same. After all, how many ladies have you dated? Probably one. Even if there are two, they are not representative of the number of ladies or women in the society. So if, let's say, for instance, you come to Central University, those of you already dabbling into university relationship, because that is the reason why some of you are in the university. It's not everyone, some of you. It's the reason why some of you are in the university, to find girls or to meet a guy, that's all. Whether, if I'm lying, tell me that I'm lying. Some of you are looking for husbands. Some of you are looking for wives. So I pray that it's happened for you. Those of you who want wives, you get wives. Those of you who want husbands, you also get husbands. But you still have to use your brain. I hope you are here, or you are still at home. Okay. So that is a fact. Right. So you cannot use one simple occurrence to be the rule for all. Because you have come, oh, I need a husband, I have to investigate. If I try and enter, by all means, I'll meet somebody. It can even be a lecturer, actually. Who doesn't like investing? Go to university, you meet your future partner. All right, it can be true, it can be false. Then you came and you tried the first one, it broke, it didn't work. You tried the second one, it broke, it didn't work. You tried the third one, Charlie, it was worse. On the basis of those three examples, three experiences, we are saying all men are bad. It is not true. It is a hasty generalization. First of all, what is the population of men in Central University? Probably the population of men and women is 50-50. And if it's 50-50, and let's say we have about 5,000 students on campus, it means that 2,500 are males. So out of the 2,500 gentlemen that you dated three, they cannot be representative of the rest. They can't show that the are bad. It is unacceptable. So that is a hasty generalization. So those of you who talk like that, you have to stop. Before you say that all Asantis are like this, all Everest are like this, then you should have experienced at least 1/10 of all Everest, 1/10 of all Asantis, 1/10 of all Fantis, 1/10 of all Gans. So not on the basis of your grandmother's experience with an Everman, your grandfather's experience with an Asante woman. So you will write the entire group off. You can't do that. Your grandmother's experience is not even your experience. So if you want to really use it, then go into it. So this is where there are problems when it comes to relationship, marriages, etc. on the ethnic lines. Ethnic lines. When it comes to ethnic lines, these are some of the fallacies that are committed. The cultural 24. The cultural before. Don't try. So these are all fallacies. You don't do that. It is hasty generalization. You don't need to reason that way. So, number of examples. So I have a lot of examples here for you. Right. Okay. So we have false cause. False cause is when the conclusion depends on non-existent or minor causal connection. When you are trying to draw a relationship between two things, and then the relationship you are drawing, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. No connection exists between that. We say it is a false cause. And we have 4 types. We have the post hoc, we have non-causa pro causa, which is a very popular fallacy in law. Then we have oversimplified cause and the gambler's fallacies. These are all fallacies. So, all right. So here is a post hoc, comes from the Latin phrase post hoc ego propter hoc, which means, or when translated, is or means after this, because of this. Okay, so this fallacy assumes that because X precedes Y, X is the cause of Y. Okay, because X precedes Y, X is the cause of Y. So for instance, this morning, you decided to eat wache before going for class. And then you enter the class and start having stomach upset. And then as a result of the stomach upset, the severity that you encountered, you blamed it on the wache that you ate. You see, wache X preceding stomach upset. So now we ask you what is happening. So the wache I ate X caused the stomach upset Y. We say it's a fallacy. So you may have heard it explained as a correlation. So sometimes we would call it correlation. It's not a correlation of effect, but correlation is not the same as causation. When two things correlate, it does not mean that it causes it. So wache and the stomach upset can be correlated. Probably it's a probability. They can be correlated, but you can't say wache is the cause. All right. So a lot of these actually come from superstition or superstitious beliefs. So look at the way that witch looked at my son yesterday. The way that wizard looked at my son yesterday is the reason why he has fallen sick today. It's a fallacy. So post hoc fallacies can also stem from superstitious beliefs and other kinds of issues. So for instance, an example is here. An athlete wears lucky socks and win the game. So he wears a particular socks and win the game. And then so it was because of the socks, attributing the win to the socks and then calling the socks a lucky socks. The same thing applies to even wearing jerseys by national teams when they are playing football. So they wore a particular jersey and then won a particular match. So we can look at this or trace back to even the Black Stars' first appearance at the World Cup when they wore certain jerseys and then they were winning the match. And then they came to Brazil. They changed the jersey to a particular one and they lost miserably, 3-0. They lost miserably. And everybody said, oh, it was because of the jersey. Why did they change the jersey? The jersey has nothing to do with the match. The jersey is not the same as your leg. The leg that is playing on the pitch is not the jersey that is on the body. So that is what is called post hoc fallacy. And as we have said, you can find it in lot of places. Example is the news articles. You can find it. You can even find it in scientific or medical study. They are there, plenty. When it comes to the medical studies or scientific studies, post hoc fallacies are very prominent. They are very, very prominent. So an example is what is there. Cell phone usage has increased exponentially in the last 20 years. Researchers discovered that the incidences of brain cancer have also increased in that time. Therefore, cell phone usage must cause the brain cancer. So you see, this is a post hoc. It's a post hoc because you are correlating brain cancer, the increment in brain cancer with the increment in phone usage. Okay, and this is a scientific research, so it's a fallacious one. So you can't say that on the basis of that phone usage must be the cause of brain cancer. We used to have arguments of these telephone marks or telecommunication marks that are always raised or erected within the communities. And oftentimes we see people agitating. These marks cause cancer, brain tumor. We have all kinds of things advanced for that. But you go into research and you don't find anything. You go into research, you don't find anything. So people developing brain tumor, maybe starting from the case or the time when the particular communication mask was erected, and then you correlate the two and saying that because the correlation exists, this might be the cause is totally absurd. It doesn't make sense. And even if you go into literature and try to find out whether these telephone marks actually cause problem, we don't find anything. Researchers are still grappling with the facts and issues. They try, test everything, they don't find anything. All right. So these are some of the things that you have to be aware of. Then we have the non-causa, pro-causa, not the cause for the cause. These variety is committed when what is taken to be the cause is something. What is taken to be the cause of something is not really the cause at all. And the mistake is based on something other than the mere temporal succession. So sometimes you may mistake something that it is the cause of this. And then we'll go behind the scene and find out that, oh, Charlie, what you said is rather not the cause. It's rather not the cause. Some of these things, it happens everywhere, whether in politics, whether in the news article, whether in advertisement, whether in legal practices, whether in marriage, whether in relationship, anywhere you will find it. So you find an example here. A black cat crossed my path and later I tripped and sprained my ankle. It must be that black cat really a bad luck. Okay, so you see, you are saying that black cat should be the cause of you tripping, falling off, and spraining your ankle, or having nervous exchange, or having bone damage, etc. We are saying that you go behind the scene and realize we test it and find out whether really black cats can really do that. Okay, then we say it is the fallacy of non-causa, pro-causa. What you claim is the cause, or the cause of a particular thing, is proven that it is not the cause at all. That is what is happening here. Then we have oversimplified cause. So we have another example there. So there are more laws on the books today than ever before, and more crimes are being committed than ever before. Therefore, to reduce crime, we must eliminate the laws. So you see, again, this is absurd, right? Pro-causa, non-causa, or non-causa, pro-causa is absurd. Okay. Then we have oversimplified cause. So it's just closer to the two, right? So let me move on quickly to slippery slope. Please mute yourself. If you have a question, I'll let you ask very soon, okay? We have the slippery slope. The slippery slope, the conclusion depends on unlikely chain reaction. Unlikely chain reaction. In other words, slippery slope falsely assumes that one thing will inevitably lead to another, and another, and another, and we have some unavoidable there consequence. So saying that, okay, let's say you have a chain of reaction. You drop a pen, the pen drops, hits something, something else happens, something else happens, something else happens. In that chain of events, it will not stop until something more dangerous happens. Okay, so that form of argument is referred to as slippery slope. So he said it does not allow for the idea that one can stop at any point on the slope. All right, so that is one of the problems. It does not allow that, hey, one problem can actually end. It doesn't allow for that. It doesn't allow for that. So it is a fallacy. And it does not necessarily have to lead to the inevitable inevitable their consequence. So it does not have to lead to the most dangerous end of the issue. So it means that in actual fact, there can be a restraint. In actual fact, it can stop somewhere. So there is nothing that can happen that can be consequential till infinity. No, it can stop somewhere along the line. That's what we are saying. So in argument where you postulate an argument to show that something will continue to happen until something more dangerous occurs, is a fallacy, because something that you're talking about can happen, can also stop, it can end along the way. Like talking about diseases, epidemics, and etc. Now we have the COVID-19 coming. Then you have the doom prophet like Bill Gates coming in to tell us that, hey, more dangerous epidemics are coming, and more than even what they call coronavirus. And then he begins to make other predictions and telling us that our world is going to be hit by more dangerous pandemic. Sorry, what do you call it? Is it epidemics or pandemic? Okay, it's going to be hit by more dangerous pandemics and etc. So we should be prepared for it. That is a slippery slope argument. It's a slippery slope, because even the COVID-19 can stop somewhere, end somewhere, and will not continue again. We will never have any kind of dangerous, so-called dangerous infectious disease come to hit our planet Earth any longer. So please take note of slippery slope. So look at these examples. So this is what happened. So we are saying that once something happened, there will be a chain of reactions, and that chain of reactions will continue until a more dangerous outcome spills out. Until the more dangerous outcome spills out, it cannot be stopped. We are saying it's a fallacy. So, for example, if you buy a Green Day album, then you will buy the Avengers. Before you know it, you will be a punk with a green hair intact. If you don't want to have green hair, then you can buy a Green Day. So all kinds of nonsense. So let's watch out on this level of argument, saying that a cause of reaction will continue for a very long time and then lead to a more dangerous end. For instance, let's talk on an example of somebody arguing from the fact that, hey, a young lady or young man, don't engage in teenage pregnancy because once you get into it, you can never stop. Okay, that is fallacy. And it's not encouraging the father go and do it. No, but it's a fallacy because, and then we'll say, okay, as you cannot stop, eventually this is what will happen to you. But what about if it's possible for the person to end along the line, or there's something dangerous who even happens immediately after doing it the first time? Then there's no chain of reaction. That's why we are saying that it is a fallacy. All right, so we don't need to reason in that punch, in that way. Then we have weak analogy, trying to draw similarity between two people. Weak analogy, drawing similarity, because A is green, this is also this. It means that they have similar capacity. Okay, because twins. So let's do, for example, you have twin brothers, two boys, okay, twin brothers, and you have encountered one of the twin brothers. He's kind, he's gentle, he's this, he's that. I'm talking ladies' language. I'm using ladies' language here. He's gentle, he's kind, he's smart, he's loving, he's so. Okay, so you're falling for this gentleman. All right. Then your friend, who is also interested in your relationship because he knows that, hey, oh, that's a brother. Oh, so they're actually twins. All right. Then your guy, since he's all of these, then the brother automatically too is like that. Then you also crouch in and catch him hard into your net. Then you also become your guy. And you realize that the two guys are different. One is abusive, one is kind. So you see what is happening? Fallacy. So not because two things look close, look the same or have similar promises means that they are the same. It's a weak analogy. Okay. So let's look at an example. Harper's new car is bright blue, has leather upholstery, and get excellent gas mileage. Sorry. So Crowley's new car is also bright blue and has leather upholstery. Therefore, it probably gets excellent gas mileage too. Right. So look at it. You can have, you see, they both have each of them. Harper has a car. Crowley also has a car. Harper's car is in that color described as bright blue and having a leather upholstery. And then Crowley also has the same car that is bright blue and having a leather upholstery. But what you have not been told is the brand. Whether one is a Mercedes Benz and one is Toyota, one is a Honda, or one is what? You have not been told. So not because two things look similar means that they function in the same way. Not because they have the same characteristics means that their gas efficiency is the same. You may go in and find out that probably Harper's gas, what do you call Crowley's car, the gas mileage is not excellent, it's bad. The car consumes a lot of gas. So you buy it, you will be in problem. So if you are carried away by listening to mere advertisement and you are not smart enough, you see, most of you fall for bad advertisements because they promise you things that you haven't thought through. You have to use your brain to find out, okay, you said these two things look similar because of these functionalities and etc. For instance, that same fallacy was committed today. Today, Central University, the lecturers, we had a training online, and our trainers are coming from South Africa, so we're online. Then what they are selling is a product they have sold out to Central. We have to use that particular platform to teach you so that we can have a very huge interaction in our classes. So you will not be deficient. You'll be able to create platform for yourself and be efficient with your learning and all of that. Then I have also used other softwares which does probably even more efficient work than that when it comes to classroom interaction. So DS is the Eon XR. Eon XR, if you have heard of what do you call it, virtual reality and then augmented reality, if you have heard of that, it actually originated with these gamings. And I know most of you in this class, if not most, some of you in this class play these augmented reality games, right? So you put something on your eye, be watching in space, and then moving your hands around and be playing your game. It is called augmented reality or virtual reality, any of them. Then I've also used Loop's creative learning. So I asked them, how different is their product from what do you call it? Loop's creative learning. The first answer, fallacy, Brian. So these are some of the things. I think I copied even the conversation down. But I'm far away from it now. If not, I would have referred to it. So these kind of fallacies, they are trying to draw a similarity between things and make them look as if they are the same, and even trying to posture yourself as, hey, Charlie, I'm offering you the best when you don't understand. You see, the first problem they had is that when I asked in the question, all four of them, there were four on the platform, three white, two from America and two based in South Africa. All of them, they said they have never heard of the loop creative learning. They've never heard of it before. So on what basis are you drawing the similarity? And then I sent them a YouTube video and a short link of the product to them. So I just started questioning, on what basis did you make your assessment right now in less than 1 minute? And you're responding. Don't be too quick to talk. Drawing a quick analogy, which is not relevant. So please watch out. It is done in almost every sphere. So I've explained all of that by giving you an example. Okay. Then we'll look at the last group. These include the fallacies of presumption. The fallacies of presumption. So the fallacies of presumption, we'll be looking at the begging the question, complex question, false dichotomy, suppressed evidence. And we'll start with begging the question. When we talk about fallacies of presumption, what are they? Fallacies of presumption actually arise because the premises presume what they purport to prove. Okay, the premises presume. Presume. The premises presume. It's an assumption. I assume that this should be it. And the first one is what? Begging the question. So you look at the question. You have premise one. You have premises, shaky key, premise, something is missing, conclusion is post. And then you come to two, shaky premise, then you have conclusion, restate premises, and then number three, in that order. So what it tells you is that you are saying one thing, but what you are saying and giving a conclusion for, what you are saying is shaky. It's just a presumption. It's just an assumption you are making. And then you are stating a premise. Or you state a premise, and then the premise you have stated is really shaky, is not really having a foot to stand. Then on that basis, you bring us a conclusion by restating the premise. We're going to look at examples, right? You have shaking premise, conclusion, conclusion, conclusion in that order. So you bring a shaking premise, you restate, or then you keep posting conclusion, 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 conclusion. So in the begging the question fallacy, please, if you have a question, ask before I move on. I think I should pause for a few minutes for a few questions. Then we'll move on. If you have a question, please, let me take a few questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and then let me pick those questions quickly. Right. Okay. So the arguer creates in the begging the question fallacy, which is also called in Latin petitio principi. Petitio principi. Petitio principi. Petitio principi. Begging the question. The arguer creates the illusion that inadequate premises are adequate by leaving out a key premise. The arguer creates the illusion that inadequate premises are adequate by leaving out a key premise, by restating the conclusion as a premise, or by reasoning in a circle, which we have looked at. So we have looked at this condition. So the first condition, the second condition, the third condition. In the first condition, the arguer is creating an illusion that inadequate premises are adequate, okay, by leaving out a key premise and then give us a conclusion. So he gives us a premise. Then on the basis of what a conclusion should be drawn, he doesn't bring that premise. He leaves it out. By restating the conclusion itself as a premise is a problem. In other words, you are reasoning in circle. You state the premise, you state the conclusion, you state the premise, you want to state the conclusion, then you restate the premise as a conclusion. Or you restate a conclusion as a premise, then there's a problem. So let's look at this. Murder is morally wrong. This being the case, it follows that abortion is morally wrong. You see, what is happening here? There should be another premise that should be provided for us to even move on to the conclusion. But that did not happen. So something is missing. There is a missing premise to that. So murder is morally wrong. This being the case, it follows that abortion is morally wrong. So if you say that, what is missing here? We have to find out. Since there's something missing and you are restating a conclusion as part of the premise, we are going to have problem. Okay. Then example 2, of course, humans and apes evolved from common ancestors. Just look how similar they are. Okay. So humans and apes evolved from common ancestors. So because they look similar, then it makes it so. It is a fallacy because here you are reasoning in a circle. It's cyclical. We are to reason based on similarity, and you are restating the conclusion as part of the premise, making it so that anytime we see similarity, then they are one and the same. That is a fallacious. So that is an argument in a circle. It is obvious that the poor in this country should be given handout from the government. After all, these people ain't less than the average citizen. So here, a conclusion has been restated as part of the premise. A conclusion has been restated as part of the premise. And so key things that are missing is what begs the question. So here you are begging the question. Okay. Then we have complex question. In the complex question, you have an arguer attempting to trap a reader or listener. So for instance, let me ask this question. Let's try to be practical a little. Okay. Edith, are you in the class or you've left? Edith.
I'm here.
Edith. You are
I'm
there.
here.
Okay. Okay. Edith, have you broken up with your boyfriend?
I'm married.
Okay. So you see, Edith is smart. Edith is smart. So that's a fallacy. And we call it complex question. What I ask her is a fallacy. Because if she says yes, then it means what? Indeed, she was dating somebody. If she says no, even though she's not even dating anybody, if she says no, it also implies that she's what? Actually dating somebody. That is why it's a fallacy. So such fallacies are committed, and I like the way Edith responded. So she beat the scheme. She beat the scheme. So these are fallacies. So when anybody asks you that question, it's a complex question. So ask you, have you stopped fornicating? If you say yes, it means, oh, so indeed, that's what you've been doing. If you say no, it means then you are still doing it. Have you stopped cheating on your husband? It's the same thing. So these are complex questions. And complex questions are meant to trap. So you see, attempt to trap by asking that question. Okay. Then the reader or the listener responds. So when the reader or the listener responds, the argument becomes completed. And when the argument is completed, you have been implicated. The reader or the listener, you have been implicated. So if Edith has not answered the question that way, should have been implicated. That is the example I want you to have. Edith, so sorry for using it for, I'm forgiving.
It's okay.
Okay, it's just for class purposes. It's not for anything. So thank you very much for being there. So that is it. So we have lot of them. So you see here, a complex question. Let us suppose the respondent answers yes to the first question. All right. So what is the first question? Have you stopped cheating on exams, which I've explained already? So you say yes to the first question, and under the bed to the second. The following argument, the argument that will emerge as follows. You were asked whether you have stopped cheating on exam. You answered yes. Therefore, it follows that you have cheated in the past. That is what the argument is going to imply. Okay. So that's it. And then the second one, you were asked where you hid the marijuana you were smoking, and you replied under the bed. It follows that you were in fact smoking marijuana. So that argument stands out. So the first one was a trap, and people can be trapped in that way. So please be smart and always be careful so that you don't go being outsmarted in matters. That's why in the university, it's a quick thinking environment. You cannot be around and so I'm okay. All right, so Danso Precious. Let me hear from you. Danso Precious.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
So in this circumstance, how do you get out of this when somebody traps you with a question like this?
So you can explain to the person, and so you think the question is not appropriate. That's all.
Okay. Or do you ask a question from his or her question back?
You don't need to. That is also another fallacy.
Okay, sir. Okay, sure. Thank
So,
you.
like, is it like Edith did? She dodged. She didn't answer that question. She dodged it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I was
Okay.
committing that fallacy against her. I wanted to trap her. All right. So she dodged it. So I couldn't get her. She didn't fall for my trap. So if you are fast on reasoning issue, you'll be dodging some of these traps. Because the moment you finish answering, then you have implicated yourself. Sometimes you have investigate crime investigators. They also use the complex question to trap people, innocent people, into crime, and then prosecute them in court, and they go to spend jail terms that are unjustified. Unjustified jail terms. So we always have to be careful when these sort of questions are being asked, whether it's by people you respect, people, powerful people. Always tell them. If you're not, that question is not clear and it is a complex question, please tell them that you think this question is a trap, so you can ask the question appropriately. Okay. That's so. Please, have you gotten it?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Any other question, please? Okay. If no other question, then let's look at let's look at two more and then we end. We have the false dichotomy. The false dichotomy, it has to do with either or statement. You see, the moment you use either or, it means that two things have similarities. In English, they have synonymous, they are more like synonyms. Black or white. Then you are okay, so let's look at it. In this fallacy, the arguer sets up the situation so that it looks as though there are only hello. So it seems there are too many calls on my background. So I will tell people my time for teaching, they shouldn't call. All right. So very sorry for those interruptions that have caused this disruption. Okay. So let's look at uh, this let's look at this example. So either you let me attend the Dixie Chicks concert, or I will be miserable for the rest of my life. I know you don't want me to be miserable for the rest of my life. So it follows that you will let me attend the concert. Now, this is a fallacy. We call it false dichotomy. So here, what is the arguer trying to do? The arguer presents the listener with two choices. Two choices. And then by that two choices, the arguer tries to tell you that there's only two choices that are available. So if the arguer eliminates one choice, then what will remain is the arguer's own assertion. And we are saying that in life, there are more than two choices. So if you say, okay, attending the concert is what will make you, that is what will make you happy. Okay, but will make him happy, or if I don't attend, then I'll become miserable. So he presents you two choices. He said, you let me attend this concert or I'll be miserable. So two choices. And then on the basis of that, the arguer eliminates one of them. So what is left is what? The arguer's own assertion. That, hey, because you wouldn't want me to look miserable, it means that you will let me attend what? The concert. And we say that it's a fallacy. You can't bring false dichotomy into trying to coerce people to make a choice so that you can beat them down. It is relevant in almost every area of life. Every area of life. So let's look at a third example. I can't find my book. It was either stolen or I never had it. I know I had it. Therefore, it must have been stolen. So here, again, it's the same thing. So a choice will be eliminated, and what will be left out is what? Will be left out is the arguer's assertion. Let me give you a very practical, another example from my student. Last year, students took my exam in one of the courses I taught, that is entrepreneurship and financial literacy. Entrepreneurship and financial literacy. I teach this course to non-business students, those in the sciences and etc. So they take this course, entrepreneurship and financial literacy. Then the result was published. And result being published, number of students failed. So this is the trick they did. You know, when you go on the OCs, they can print a form. When you print the result as F, then they go in using computer technology and design the background of the OCs again. They design the background of the OCs. Then they put in a grade. They put in a grade. So two students did it. So they put in a grade. Then they went to report that, sir, I passed this course. In the previous OC's result release, I had a B. But subsequently, it has appeared F. And so is that so? It's a film. Okay, provide your proof. Then the two occasions, they are all ladies, which means that they have somebody doing that for them. It could be a computer science guy who is dating either the two girls or anything and want to help them to beat the system. Probably they have used it to beat other lecturers in the system. So you see, evil is always on the increase, and people are always finding ways, advancing evil, and then getting what they want. So presented these choices. So, sir, how come? I wrote the exam and I got a B, and now I'm seeing an F. Did I write it or not? Or what does it imply? So here, the student know the trick they are using. So I didn't talk. I said, okay, present the proof. He sent the proof. Then I look at the first proof. I checked, and I see that, yes, this is the real OC's background. The F1 is the real OC's background. Then I checked the second one. And then the second one, she printed it in a landscape. And in the landscape, then she interpreted the result to be a B. Then I laughed. Then I am a computer person. You can't beat me around. I love IT related issues. So I picked it, placed it down on her own phone. The pictures she has sent me. So on my phone, places side by side on my computer. Then I examined the background. I realized the spacing. I checked the spacing. I checked a few lettering. And then I looked at so many background issues. I said, hey, so is that what they are doing? So I went back to my result. I went to my result. So whatever me I put down, I have results from the day I started lecturing in the university. All those results are there. If you don't find them on my computer, they are in my cyberspace. In my cyberspace, I can download them anywhere at any time. So I went to my cloud and then downloaded the result. And I checked. I said, okay, this student claimed this. I checked, she had an F. I checked another background, she had an F. Then I came back and said, lady, you say you got what? I said, I had a B. So why do you lie? So such a student, when you write a receipt, you can still be failed because you don't tell the truth. They use false dichotomy, commit fallacies, catch people swindle, and then they go away. Then they'll go laughing in isolation. Oh, I've tricked him. I've tricked him. I've tricked him. Then they'll be laughing and they'll be spreading it around. I've tricked him. I've gotten him. You say he's smart. I've gotten him. And they will dirty you. They can implicate you and lead so many things. People are so dirty. They oftentimes in the African environment, African students practice with dirty mind. They are not prepared to learn. They are just finding way to be evil. That's all. I know those of you in my class, you are not like that. That is why I'm spilling it out for you to know. So that in case you fall into that trap later, and then later on you also want to do something like that, you should know that you will implicate yourself, you'll get yourself into trouble. So I warned her. I said, look, I am in my good mood today, but I can see you're a thief. I will report you to the university to deal with you. And she started apologizing. But you say you had a grade. Why should you apologize? So these are some of the things. So guys, people can do anything for whatever reason, for whatever they want. So you always have to be smart. That is when the brain has to always be smart. All right. Then the last one I will treat here is the suppressed evidence. The arguer ignores important evidence that requires a different conclusion. Okay. Then he poses a conclusion. So ignores stronger evidence. So you are giving us a conclusion. And there's a stronger evidence. And he ignores that stronger evidence because he or she wants to give us a different conclusion. So for example, most dogs are friendly and pose no threats to people who pet them. Therefore, it will be safe to pet the little dog that is approaching us now. You see, there's a problem. There's a problem. You say most dogs are friendly. So is it possible that there are also dogs that are not friendly? So the conclusion posed. So there's a suppressed evidence. There's an evidence that has not been brought in. It is suppressed. So it is a fallacy. Oftentimes, we may forgive and bring and supply and then supplement the fallacy. Supplement the evidence that is missing. Okay. But if you say most dogs are friendly and pose no threat to people who pet them, it is also possible that some dogs are not friendly, because if you are using most, then a strong evidence exists that there are some who pose a threat. If it's the most, then there are some who pose what? A threat, which has been ignored. And because it is ignored, this conclusion is what has been arrived at. So it makes it what? A fallacy. If he had considered the stronger evidence or the next strong evidence, this conclusion wouldn't have been stated. So on the whole, this is where I will end my lesson. So we'll continue later with the fallacies of ambiguity and etc. God willing, next week. So if you have any question, if you have any question, you may ask. Edit. Yes, any question? Okay, thank you so much. Ekuya, I'm waiting for you. Question? Ekuya, Smiley, question. Okay, so Edith, you may kindly mute yourself.
So, Master.
Yes, Ekuya, go ahead.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm listening. Yes. Okay, Pamela, question. Pamela.
Sir,
Any question for me?
Please no, sir. Please no, sir.
Okay. Emmanuel Adusei, question?
No, sir.
Okay. You Afolabi Kofu, any question? All right, let me go to Benji. Benji, yes, you may ask your question or you may come in with what you have. Benji, please go
Good evening,
ahead.
sir.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to ask if an argument that is considered as a fallacy cannot be a fallacy. You gave an example earlier when you said if you give marks when students respond on the platform. So let's assume where I am now is very noisy and I'm not able to ask a question or answer a question. And I give a reason to that. How do you know this is a fallacy or not?
But I am not examining what you are doing as a fallacy. If it's a fallacy, it means that your conclusion you are giving to your premise is flimsy. And then again, even if you say that, if you say because your background is noisy or etc., you're still reasoning back. Please, you may mute yourself. You may mute yourself. Mute yourself, and then you take the response. Please mute yourself as I respond. All right. So if you say your background is noisy, so you can't talk, so blah 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 blah. The question that will be asked is, do you have a chat box? Because a noise will not be seen if you should write or you should type. When you type and it comes, it will not be a noise. We will see, we can read. So we wouldn't hear any background interruption and all of that. So you can see that clearly there's no excuse. So if you create an excuse, you are rather making things difficult for yourself. So that is where the fallacy may be coming in. Because there are options. Apart from talking, you can write. Okay, Edith. Now finally you have gotten a question.
Thank
so
you
go
very
ahead.
much.
Welcome, Benji.
the formal and then informal fallacies. Are there the types or kinds of fallacies and then the ones we just dealt with, the fallacies of relevance, all those things? I want to know the
Don't worry about them. Just fallacies is okay. Okay. So don't worry about the classification. All right. So fallacies. All right. Okay, Edith. For you not to be confused.
Okay, sir.
All right. Ben. Okay, Ben, kindly, if you have a question. Okay, Ben, you have finished. Edith too has finished. Derek. Okay, Derek. We are closing. He's not coming. Edith, if you have a question again, you can ask. If not, then you put your hand down. All right. So, any other question? Any other question? All right. Thank you very much. This is where we'll end. I'll make the recording available to you right after the class. If you are not able to access it, then I'll go and put. The reason is that you should be able to use your central email to log in to be able to access the video. So if you, that is, even if I send you the link, you should be able to use to log in before you can access it. But it looks like most of you are still not logging in with your email. So what I'll do is that I'll put it on YouTube for some time, but I'll be deleting it. All right. So any video, classroom video I put on YouTube, I'll be deleting it later. It's just for you to watch and review. Okay. So try as much as possible to review it if I put a recording online for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.